Here we go, fourth round of the Toyota Gazoo Racing GR Cup for 2023 with GR86s. We have our pits, our banners are up, cars are here. I've just been through the car, I've just been checking the belts, my booster seat, checking that everything is good. We went and signed in, got our transponders. I've hooked up the GoPro for your viewing pleasure, but it is a nice, crisp winter's day out here in Gqeberha, Port Elizabeth. Aldo Scribante circuit, there's race control over there and the tower. Here are our pits and the sun rising up over the horizon. So what are we sitting with? Sitting third in the championship so far. This is now the fourth round. It sort of marks the halfway point of this championship. 7 rounds in it, and it wraps up sort of towards the end of the year. This is the third round of the National Extreme Festival, and of course our fourth round, our first round, was part of the regional series. So going at it tooth and nail. Mixed results from the last event. Didn't do too bad. In that one, the recap, and you can check the video in one of these corners. It qualified second in the official qualifying. So I started second, and then I started on pole in race number 2, heat number 2, as I had the fastest time of the first race. But first race I finished in third, second race I finished in second overall, my first podium, and hoping to replicate that or do a little better. I have done 1,500 kilometers in the simulator. That equates to about 600 laps around Aldo Scribante. Of course, I have driven it on launches and filming and the likes, but that was never setting a time, and when you're trying to set a time, it works rather differently. It's a challenging track. But let's just take a look. You're not going to see it here, but the vehicles are a little soggy and wet. The track is rather soggy and wet, and we're sitting with new brake pads. So our first practice session is largely going to be exploratory, hopefully exploring the track and not exploring the surrounding areas.
8:20, yeah, straight, we're out first.
And how does that make you feel, Mark?
Feel special, what?
It's okay, I'll beat that out.
Oh, sorry. My bad. I feel special, Chad.
You feel special, yeah. Ruben?
Chad, can I tell you a secret?
Please do.
Like, this is the packaging film on your visor. You'll see the ABEX is better if you take it off.
Yeah, I know. I'll put it back on when I'm done.
Check this out, he's gonna go 2 seconds faster now.
Isn't that satisfying though?
Speed secrets number 17.
Ruben van Niekerk here, doing it for Jumping Kids. Hey, here's the part of the video that I want to show.
No photo.
Brendan and Dennis getting dressed. And so Chaba down at the bottom. Mantis Pathet is joining us. He is in car number 7. So we are first out. I need to get booties on. I am dressed, but here we go, car number 7. It is the mismatched vehicle, but we'll see how things pan out here today. Gotta keep things looking clean. first time driving Aldo Scribante in anger, and well, we were sent out so early that the track was very green, very wet, very greasy. Places where I should only be lifting, I'm needing to brake, and every time you climb on the power, the tail just wants to come round. So not a very good indication of what we're capable of doing. Out of the bunch of us, I ran second quickest. Unnamed is, yeah, he's actually surprisingly quick. And the second session that we're going to go into now, you can hear the V8s headed out on track, is going to be a slightly better indication of what I can do. Yeah, this is actually a bit of a track. The simulator doesn't give you an idea of how close the walls actually are, so it's got a bit of a street circuit vibe here, despite the fact that it is an open regular long circuit. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Need to swallow a couple of brave pills. Practice 2 has been red flagged. Unfortunately, Bjorn in one of the Yaris's went off at turn 7 and put it into the tyre wall. Not pretty. He's okay, just getting checked out. But it's the very real reality of racing. We saw this in Killarney as well, and it's just a reminder of how quickly things can turn. So yeah, you get it wrong, like I did in practice 2. The one rather quick, daunting corner, hanger, I went in a little too quick, had a bit of a sketchy line, didn't feel confident with it, opened up the wheel and just ran it onto the grass. Kept the momentum going, kept it off the tyres and brought it back onto the track. Not the end of the world, but of course that was a throwaway lap. I did improve my lap times, but as we've learned with my racing exploits, so did everybody else. So I've just been engulfed, and the guys are getting properly quick. We're not separated by much, but yeah, the guys are right there. I'm probably sitting about 4th, 5th in the league. It's like second from the bottom overall. That's a bit rough, so I need to find something in practice 3 and then of course switch it on for qualifying. Practice 3, sadly more of the same. The Yaris's were on new brakes, so they became a little bit of traffic as we were trying to get around the track. I approached it in a slightly more systematic way, and this seemed to work. I brought the times down, but unfortunately I'm still lacking the pace with the overall field. I guess this is racing. You can't always be quick. Some tracks you will, you know, do well at, others not so much. Aldo Scribante I'm struggling with, I'll be perfectly honest. But this is just practice day. It's not race pace, it's not race craft. As much as I know that that's possibly a weakness of mine. We'll see what we can do in qualifying. It's going to be a completely different track. Let's see what it's like tomorrow. Today was exploratory, and I think that's all we can say about it. It's race morning. It's bright, early. We're getting ready for the day. So, got in yesterday and started going through some of the Garmin Catalyst telemetry that we get from the Garmin catalysts that we run in the car. These give us delta times, and these give us things like acceleration, deceleration, racing line, and gives you a couple of tips based on information that you provided. So it's not coaching per se, but it's based on what your capabilities are. It allows you to piece together an optimal lap. You know, you did corner 1 really fast on that lap, but that lap wasn't your fastest lap. So we'll use that corner and we'll combine all your fastest sectors together and all your fastest corners to give you an optimum lap. That optimal lap of mine is actually rather good. So in theory, I should be able to get to the front end of the grid. Went out for dinner, came back, and just gave it some long, hard thought. Had a good night's rest, and now we're going to head out to the track. It's, like I say, bright and early, and we've got qualifying, but thankfully we're not first out. So while I'm okay in slippery conditions, it seems, the track will be a little rubbered in, a little dried out, so it's going to be tough competition. I'd like to be near the front. It's a trickier track to pass on, so the further back you are, the more difficult it is to get to the front, but if you are towards the front, then defending is a little bit easier. Confidence levels are a little better this morning. I want to do this. I want to get there. Sitting third in the championship, and I don't want to slip down from that. In fact, I'd like to go a little bit higher. That is entirely possible, but the competition is so tough. So I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. I want to go out there and I want to go and have fun. That's first and foremost, is having fun. So let's go and do that. Join me on the adventure. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. That is considerably better. So, qualifying has put me on the front row again. I'm not quite at Sachaba's pace just yet, but I do believe that I can get there. You see, this qualifying session was rather busy. It was like trying to qualify on the N1. There was so much traffic. But I managed to get a lap or two in that was pretty quick and bettered yesterday's times. Track is feeling better, car's feeling better. Me, personally, confidence levels are feeling so much better. It was a pity that we ended up with all that traffic, a couple of stragglers from the Yaris's, and then of course 1 or 2 86s as well. But not the end of the world. That front row means that Sachab and myself can hopefully get away from the pack. Thing is, there's, well, Mark and Dennis, and they're not far off of my pace right behind me. So I need to keep the pigs together. I need to play defensive, not be a walkover, but also not crash the car. That bump from the last round hasn't gone down well, and I definitely don't want to damage the car again. I want to look after it. So qualifying really didn't go bad. We've got to go into heat 1. That happens in about an hour's time, so I'm going to start prepping, getting ready for that.
Who's on pole position ahead of Chad Luckhoff, so it's going to be a fight there between the two media-based drivers, and then of course it's the Times Live's Dennis Dropper alongside the Citizen Motoring's Mark Jones. Nice run from Arno Patha. He's moved up into the third row of the grid ahead of Brandon Staniforth, and Ruben van Niekerk will bring up the tail end of that 86 League as they go into the S's for the first time. Warming up those Dunlop tyres, getting them ready to go now for hopefully as good a battle as what we saw in this class at Swartkops only a couple of weekends ago. Mashigo, Luckhoff, Dropper, and Jones. So we can see who's going to have what it takes now as they drop the hammer and head down towards turn 1. Trying to do the same thing there, and it looks like a little bit of pressure already coming from Dennis Dropper around the outside of Chad Luckhoff. Luckhoff gives him a little bit of room, and Dropper moves up into second place. Oh, clipping the curb into turn 1. You want to stay off those curbs. This hairpin actually used to be sponsored by Toyota at one point, if I recall. As they come out of that hairpin now, it's the Gazoo Racing squads on track and putting on a good show here. You can see Luckhoff trying to close that gap down, and he's not having an answer to Dennis Dropper. And they're just both watching, as they saw all weekend long so far. So Chaba Mashigo just getting away from all the rest of those 86 Toyotas. Patha having a fantastic run as well. They're just ahead of Ruben van Niekerk, Brennan Staniforth a bit further back. Not quite where he wants to be. He'd like to be a little bit higher up, I'm sure. Looks like, yeah, there's definitely a bit of a maneuver on there from the 86 League. They've closed the gap down onto the back end of the last car there from the Yaris League. 9 car definitely been closed in. And Tariq Adam has got to watch those wing mirrors. Hasn't really been an occasion where they've kind of got into the same mix between the 86s and the Yaris. But certainly down here at Aldo Scribante, we're seeing it for the first time. If he can get there, there's a very good possibility that both Dennis Dropper and Chad Luckhoff will get there as well. So Luckhoff in third place has not been able to return the favour there on Dropper just yet. Mashiga gets blocked slightly by one of these slower Yarises at the front. That might just give Dropper and Chad Luckhoff a chance to close him down again. Jones, looks like Van Niekerk is back through again. Yes, he is. Patha now into the clutches of Staniforth. Staniforth into turn 1, looking for a chance on the inside.
It's at this point that I detect a bit of a noise and check to see if anything has fallen off the car.
Possibility of another change-up as we see. Oh, is that Luckhoff? It is. Chad Luckhoff running wide in the AutoTrader car. He's helped out there. Doesn't look like it was a kind of maneuver that Chad would make. He's not usually a man to make a mistake like that, particularly at this stage of a race. Although I say that at Swartkops he made a big mistake into the second last corner and gave Dropper the victory. As Van Niekerk hangs on, Chaba Mashigo is going to win the race just behind the Yaris League 4, 5 and 6.
Tie let go on me. rear right let go on me with about 4 laps to go, and unfortunately there's just a couple of really hard right-handers that you really need to lean on it, and each and every time I just started leaning on it, it was just over-rotating. The fast stuff through the lefts, hanging on the likes, I could still take that whole bend for leather, but all the right stuff, and that just absolutely killed me. I ran wide on 2 and everybody just bombed past me. I just limped it home because I wanted to complete the laps. I didn't want to be a DNF, otherwise I would have pulled it into the pits ages ago. Racing, man, what a cruel mistress. Race 1 went out there, confidence levels pretty high because I did pretty good in qualifying and I started on the front row, 2nd place. Lined up and I thought, yeah, I can put a bit of a challenge in here. I'm not too far adrift from Sachaba. I'm pretty sure that I can find the pace for it. Unfortunately, here at Aldo Scribante, when you start 2nd on the grid, you start on the outside. The first 2 corners are right-handers, which means that if you start out on the right, you've got the advantage and you're inside before it turns left. So you don't really want to be on the outside, which I was. Get away, and early on I slot in to try and defend the line on the right-hand side behind Sachaba. But then a little later on, Dennis manages to get past me. He gets a slightly better drive out of the corner, and he moves past me, but I let him go. We're not going to bump into each other again like we did in the last round. And I said, that's fine, because a race can be lost on the first corner, but it can't be won on the first corner. So I let him go, and I chased him down. And I was chasing him down convincingly, and I was already identifying a couple of the areas on the lap where he was a little slower. And I knew that I could capitalize on those and then get past him back into 2nd place and hunt down Sachaba. As the race progressed, lap 6, lap 7, around there, the Sachaba and Dennis and myself, we all sort of started catching up to the back end of the Yaris's, and I was like, great, this is now some traffic for them, it's going to slow them down, and it did. It slowed both Sachaba and Dennis down, and I was within striking distance. And it was around there that I picked up a puncture in the rear right tyre. So Aldo Scribante is very heavy on the left-hand side of the tyre, left-hand side of the car, the left-hand tyres, because there's a lot of strong, hard right-handers. This, however, some of the fast stuff is left-handers, and every time I went around a left-hander, the tail would come out because rear right puncture, I just couldn't lean on it, I couldn't put the power down. So I summarily went off in turn 3. And as a result, I let Mark, who was gaining on us now as we were slowing down for the traffic, let Mark past, and yeah, there were too many cars behind him and I had to slot in behind them. And then when it happened through turn 7, I knew this is a problem with the car. This is not me. I didn't overcook it, I didn't over-rotate it, I didn't hit anything greasy on the track, you know, a bit of oil or a bit of water or something of the sorts. This is a mechanical problem. And rear right, yeah, did have a puncture. It was only once I pulled into the pits that I realized it was a puncture. I thought, maybe it's a delamination, something of the sorts, but no, it was flat. And yeah, there's Mr. over there, so great stuff. So I've got a brand new Dunlop on the rear. That needs to be scrubbed in though, before we head out to race 2. Scrub, 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 new. Yeah. This is going to be a fun car to drive.
Front end of the 86 League is Sechaba Mashigo. Chad Luckhoff will be looking to try and stay on that front row and not let Dennis drop her through. Ruben Finikuk is alongside him, Mark Jones, and then at the back end some manoeuvring from the likes of Panther and Staniforth. Mashigo. Oh, where is that AutoTrader car gone? Look at that, Chad has dropped back down to 4th place. Did not get the start he wanted. Closing things down there, and closing in on the AutoTrader car. Looks like it might be a bit of a fight on there between Ruben van Niekerk and the AutoTrader car, as van Niekerk is pulling away slightly now from Chad. Here comes a leg dive. No, not quite there yet. Mark Jones thought about it, clipping the curb on the inside there from Luckhoff as well. Now to the brakes. Yaris League. This is the 86 League, and it's Jones versus Luckhoff. Jonesy trying to close in there on the back end of Chad Luckhoff. Luckhoff keeping him at bay for now. She has to try and keep the pressure on him all the time and hope he makes a mistake. That's what's happening at the back end now. Like it could possibly be Brendan Staniforth joining the party as well. Yes, it is. Staniforth on the back end of Jones and Luckhoff. Will do with pleasure. Just getting information there from our producer Paul, and telling us that Thomas Falconer is watching, because he's a man who was involved in this category last year. Great to have him there. And yeah, I'm so glad that you're watching, Tommy. Thanks for the shout out there to all the drivers. I'm sure you'd love to be involved in this little battle, buddy. But nice one there from Thomas Falconer, watching on YouTube. Thanks for that, mate. We appreciate it, and thanks for the support. Jumping in here in the late stages to watch the second heat of Yaris and the GR Cup. Of the 86 League. And once again, Mashigo, if I'm not mistaken, Mashigo is going to go to 4 out of 8, I think. So 50% record there for Sichaba Mashigo. Might be a little bit more. I'll have to get confirmation on that, but still, the dominant force in the 86s this weekend was Mashigo. He beats out Dennis Dropper from the Times Live, and then it's Chad Luckhoff and Ruben van Niekerk who got through in the end and beat out Mark Jones. So ladies and gents, that's it for the day. There is unofficial results for Gqeberha Racing Cup, and it's Saad Variawa, Cara Hill and Bjorn Berthold to top 3 ahead of Tariq Adam, Ryan Naka and Nicholas Vastanis. And then we've got Shaba Mashigo winning out the 86 League, beating out Dennis Dropper, Chad Luckhoff, Ruben van Niekerk and Mark Jones.
Well, podium for race or heat 2, yes, thankfully. Still not amazing, still lost a position. I started out on the front row, so second on the grid. Dropped 2 positions early on, and then had to fight to claim one back again. Definitely feeling better, but I am running on one brand new tyre at the rear, so it sits in the back of the mind and you're unsure, is the car behaving, isn't it? You're waiting for it to happen again. And yeah, this car didn't feel 100%, but I still ran in the 13s during the race, and there was some good tussles. I had to keep my pigs together. So that wraps up round 4 of the championship. We're now past the halfway point, and in the championship log, I've dropped from 3rd on the log to 4th on the log. I'm now a point behind Dennis. He's overtaken me, and I really, really, really want to just get ahead of him ideally. He missed 1 round, so yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. The next round takes place on the 22nd of July at East London Grand Prix Circuit in East London, and I've got mixed feelings about that one. It's a daunting track that I haven't driven in anger, and I'm hoping that I can really just bring out my A game and put in a good performance again. This is motor racing. As we've seen, anything can happen.
Search AutoTrader.